Hello, listeners. We are back for our second episode, as we have two this month, for Autism Acceptance, featuring autism acceptance and increasing knowledge and fostering a sense of community surrounding individuals and families affected by autism. My name is Donna Quo, and I am a board-certified psychiatric and family nurse practitioner. Welcome to the Brighten Up Podcast, where we pull up the shades and shine the light on mental health topics both affecting and improving the lives of families. To provide some history on Autism Acceptance Month, some interesting facts. This month was founded in 1970 by Bernard Rimland, a psychologist and autism researcher. He chose the month of April to coincide with his son's birthday, as well as the start of spring, which symbolizes a time for new beginnings. The puzzle piece that we have all seen was first introduced in 1963 by the National Autistic Society as part of their logo. The puzzle piece symbolizes the complexity of autism and reminds us that we are all interconnected. Autism Speaks is an organization which educates and supports individuals with autism and launched the Light Up Blue campaign in honor of Autism Acceptance Month. In recent years, Autism Acceptance Month has gained momentum and is now a worldwide event. We are extremely honored today to welcome our guests from Beyond the Spectrum, Miss Lora and her daughter Loryn Carpenter, to the Brighten Up podcast. Beyond the Spectrum is an organization which initially opened in 2007 as a therapy clinic for autism and related disorders. Beyond the Spectrum reopened as a nonprofit education center in 2010. Since then, the school has grown exponentially and now serves students ages 5 to 22 in Sarasota, Florida, who are diagnosed with autism, Down syndrome, ADHD, and related developmental disorders. Beyond the Spectrum is an accredited member school which focuses on academic, functional, vocational, and foundational growth. The organization also hosts a wide variety of therapies throughout the school day to enhance students' learning experience, such as applied behavioral analysis, occupational therapy, physical therapy, music, dance, and mental health counseling. Miss Lora Carpenter is the executive director at Beyond the Spectrum and has said the mission will always emphasize the importance of inclusion and acceptance with the goal of fostering an environment of warmth, positivity, and flexibility. Lora believes meeting students where they're at is the key to helping them go beyond. Loryn Carpenter is Beyond the Spectrum's communication specialist and the host of the organization's new podcast, Helping Families Go Beyond. The podcast serves as a resource for the entire family, featuring discussions on various therapeutic interventions and guidance on important processes for caregivers as their children grow older. Episodes are released monthly and designed to support parents, caregivers, and individuals on their respective journeys. Thank you so much for being here today. Just reading up on Beyond the Spectrum and learning more about it, it really appears that the whole country really could take your lead in the comprehensive services and how great of a job that you're doing here.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate that. Thank you.
It's great to have you both here today and learn a little bit more about your journeys and Beyond the Spectrum and to empower families and spread the word.
Well, thank you for having us. We're honored to be here.
Thank you.
So thank you, Donna, for having us.
Thank you. So we'll start with our first question for both of you to answer individually. I'll start with you, Lora, as mom. Can you share with the audience a little bit more about how autism has affected your life and what inspired you to serve this population?
Sure, absolutely. I think I've come by it by, most everyone who is in this world, it's touched their lives. And my son, Scott, was born, he's 27 now. And so he developed autism about 18 months of age, regressive autism. And so that began our journey into this world that we had never understood or brushed up against. We had no knowledge of what autism was prior to that. And so it just sets an entire family on a journey to find the answers and to help your child. And every day looking and seeking and trying to support your child. So that's where I, of course, got my passion from, was just experiencing it firsthand as a mom, as a family, how it completely, it changes the entire family's life. So it became important to me that going through that phase, it's a dark, scary time in your life when you're going through that. And so coming out on the other side of it, it was very important to me to give back to families who are newly diagnosed, who are looking for answers, and just want to be a source of support, resources and support for families.
That's so admirable, and just such a beautiful example of making a challenge a gift to others. And
yeah, that was important to me. That the first thing was that I knew that we did everything absolutely possible that we could, for our son, and then to make something out of that experience and be able to give back.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Just the influence, the sphere of influence that you have is fantastic, is amazing.
Right. Just to brush up, I love to be out in the world that is not affected by autism so that they can learn in a very non-judgmental, I don't mind brushing up against that and people asking questions and people being interested, because how else do we all learn, and how else do we learn to accept other than being exposed and understanding it better? So I feel passionate about families having their children out in the world, experiencing everyday life and allowing others to see them and allowing those children to have all the experiences they can.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now, Loryn, I'm going to ask you the same thing. Can you please share with our listeners how you have been affected with autism and helping and being an advocate for your brother, Scotty?
It's always been natural for me, I think. Just having Scotty as my brother my entire life, there's never been a question to it. And acceptance has just always been the way that we've been as a family. So I've kind of taken on that mission too, I feel like, where I want to be able to kind of share that with other families as well, that acceptance and promoting autism in the community and promoting Scotty and all of his unique abilities and the individuals that are at our school as well. It's just always been natural for me to want to advocate. So
just part of the essence of you,
right,
the fabric of your
right. I
inner
remember,
self.
Yeah, I remember there was a moment at like a family party, and I was maybe 7 or 8, and there was Scotty, and there were other families there, and there were some other kids around my age, and they were kind of watching Scotty do his thing, and they asked me, they were like, "What's wrong with him? Why is he doing that?" I think my answer was just something very general. I just answered back. I was like, "Oh, that's just Scotty. His brain just works a little differently. His brain just works a little differently," and that was all there was to it. So
you have been. What is the age difference between you and Scotty?
Yeah, he's 27 and I'm 23. Yeah.
Okay, close enough to be. I'm sure have a close relationship and have you be kind of that voice or that advocate for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
She has always been an advocate for him. It was interesting watching her grow up and kind of become his advocate. She may chronologically be his younger sister, but she has an interesting role in that in a lot of ways she's his older sister in terms of how she's responsible and cares for him and looks out for him. But it was always interesting watching her grow up in terms of how she would protect him. Always on the lookout, for things to keep him safe and letting us know how he was doing in situations. And I watch when people come in to tour the school, I enjoy watching siblings come in.
Oh, yes.
And they are on alert. And I love to see that because I realize how important it is to that sibling that their brother or sister is safe.
Absolutely.
And, it's an interesting thing to watch happen.
It's just it's really a beautiful testimony to family and love and loyalty for siblings to step up. And I think siblings who have supported a brother or sister through, an autism diagnosis or any type of lifelong struggle diagnosis are really have such great insight at such a young age on what's important in life. And I just find them to be just very strong, just kind leaders in the world.
She was the one on the playground who would go help the child that maybe didn't have friends or other people weren't playing with them because maybe they had a limp or something was a little different about that child. And she would be the one who would go embrace that child. And so it just makes a difference in their essence in terms of growing up with acceptance and feeling comfortable around others who aren't exactly the same as we are.
Right. And how boring would that be? If
Right?
we were all
Exactly.
the same. Lora, can you describe to the listeners what is Beyond the Spectrum's approach toward promoting inclusion and fostering continued growth? What is the process for when a potential family comes in?
Sure.
And how do you relay that? And how is an individual plan?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. We want to make sure that we're a good fit for the entire family. So that we want a family and this child that's coming to us to feel comfortable, to feel supported, that it's a very positive atmosphere. And we try to make the best use of their time because you are going place to place to place, doctors, therapies, diagnosis, schools. You are doing everything. And so we have them fill out an intake packet with all the information that we can gather on the child, IEPs that they may come to us with, psychological reports, any kind of paperwork, diagnosis that they have. And we sit as a group and we have our school psychologist and our school BCBA sit and look over the intake packets. Our program directors go through them. We think we determine our program that would be a best fit for this student. And then we have the family come in and we all sit and we have our program directors go through an assessment with the student, with the potential student, while mom and dad get a tour. We can talk about the school, our philosophies. We want them to feel very comfortable in the space. And then we all get back together and talk about what we've discovered, where we think this student would potentially fit for us, and let them answer any questions that they have. We use the IEP when they come to us with one. If they don't have one, I would really advise parents to get one. It's not as necessary as it used to be, but to protect your child and funding sources, you should definitely have an IEP done for your child.
Would that be the responsibility of the school district they were assigned to?
That is strictly parent-driven to make sure that's done.
Okay.
Yes, that is on the parent to make sure that happens. But we really are advising families to go do that so that they're protected and have some things behind them. And so we go through the education process. We like to keep parent goals are very important to us. What are the family's goals? What are most important for them? What track do they want to see their child on in the future? Some folks want a high school diploma. Some want a highly academic track. Others want a life skill track, keeping them safe, keeping them in small classrooms. And being as small of a school as we are, we can accommodate just about anybody's needs because we have the ability to be very flexible with our classroom, the work that we have. And so I think that works to our advantage in terms of being able to, we try to meet each child where they are. We don't expect them to conform to our classrooms.
Very well stated. Be that safe spot for self-expression and provide that thriving learning environment. We want to be that
safe spot. It's tough, and getting a child with special needs out the door in the morning some mornings are really tough, and they may come in their pajamas and no shoes, and we don't care at all. We welcome them in. We'll get them dressed. We'll do whatever it takes. You got them here, you're a success. It's no judgment. We want to be that soft place for families to get advice or just to listen and understand that no two mornings are alike.
Mm-hmm. Remarkable. Mm-hmm. I want to clone your school and put one in every county.
Right. We try, we try. We just really, it's important to me. I think that's where I wear those dual hats of being a mom that's been through this life and also the administrative hat and helping us keep our focus on the family and what the family may be in need of.
Yes, it is a family system approach.
It is, right, very much so.
And needs to be. So we do know that for children living with autism that often, transition periods can be difficult, or sensory overload, or, different textures or food aversions are ongoing issues. Loryn, can you describe how these types of issues are addressed, or behavioral challenges as well addressed at Beyond the Spectrum?
So we are really grateful to be able to collaborate with so many different kinds of therapy providers that we have at our school, because on our campus we have visiting speech therapists, we have occupational therapists, we have music, we have on-site BCBA, a board-certified behavior analyst, and we have a school psychologist. And so it's amazing to watch them all work together, because I hear solutions all day long. That in the office, it's all I hear. But we're really lucky to have all those people come together. And what our main goal is in every classroom is to kind of avoid those behaviors from happening, try to prevent them. And so all of those professionals are really great at coming up with organizing classrooms and designing them in a way so students may not get overwhelmed as easily. We take a lot of things into account, like sensory, anything that could maybe trigger a student. We try to use those antecedent strategies to make sure that maybe a behavior won't happen, so that the students are calm and focused throughout the day. But we're really lucky to have all of those providers on site with us, because there's so much collaboration, and I think it makes for a really well-rounded approach with every student. It's so individualized, too, because one solution might work for a student and then it won't work for the other. And so lots of teamwork, I'd say, on campus is what helps with that.
And to be all on the same site and have that daily conversation and dialogue, just really the finger on the pulse, so to speak, on the different disciplines, and having that ongoing daily.
I think that's a good point that you made when you said that about so many conversations that take place just off of the front office with all of these professionals, just diving into one child's needs and how can we rearrange the classroom, and visual schedules or schedules on the desk versus the wall versus there's so much thought put into each child's success. And I know you had mentioned that definitely when they have the issues with the feeding and the eating, and that is such a big thing for our kids. And so a lot of our teachers have embraced that, and they'll have a day or two a week where we just try new foods, and we make it part of a fun project, and they're cut up in pretty shapes and different objects, and it's part of a game, and we all try a strawberry if we're not allergic, and we all try peanut butter if we're not allergic. And, it's amazing what kids will do in school for their teachers and their therapists versus at home with mom and dad. So we've really been able to broaden the palate of a lot of our kiddos and get some great protein into them through peanut butter or meats or stuff that they were just not willing to even try, but they'll try it for their teacher playing a game or something. I think it's all in the approach.
Absolutely.
So we're always trying to expand their worlds in whatever way we can.
It's kind of like raising the bar just a little bit to maximize learning potential, and that fishbowl approach where, there's the child in the fishbowl, and you've got all these specialists. You're all floating around in one kind of confined area, which is key to success. And that's how, in my practice, have patients that I think need to go into the hospital that we've kind of taken it to the end of the road with medication management. That's always how I describe it. We need a fishbowl approach where you can be, we could be monitoring how the medication changes are while you're safe, and you have that therapist coming in to talk to you, and that group therapy, and you've set this up day in and day out as a school, and
it's
an amazing
it's a busy place. There, when people tour, I'm like, that's our BCBA, and there goes the occupational therapist, and there goes an RBT, and there's there's so many professionals just moving about that the moving pieces it's a busy place. It's a busy place in there.
One of the things that I read up on your website was the option to assist with life skills and independence for older students getting ready to transition into adulthood. Lora, can you share some examples of how that's accomplished and provide an example or a success story of a student now living?
Definitely, sure. We have historically served students through the age of 22 years of age. And in the state of Florida, that's when all funding, unfortunately, stops for any kind of education. So a lot of our young men and women are then forced to sit at home with a parent or a caregiver because there's no funding for day programs anymore. In this area, you'll find very long wait lists. We do have several wonderful programs that are out there in the community for adults. Wait lists are years long in some places, and we have found that a lot of our ladies and gentlemen with autism don't tend to fare as well in these day adult programs. Maybe you're having a bad day. You may have some behaviors that really hold up a large group of folks, and so your success in those programs is pretty short-lived, and you may be asked to leave. So we felt it was important. We've had these guys and girls with us 10, 12 years, and we didn't want to just be setting them off into the world at 22. So we started with passion, and for me, of course, because Scotty being 27, he's an adult, that we have adult day services as these guys and girls grow up in age, because we are facing that now. My son was one of the earlier cases of autism diagnosis back in 1999. It was just not heard of back then like it is now. So these people are growing up and they're coming into adulthood and they need support services. And so we've created, it's called the Hive program, helping individuals through vocation and education. And it was important to us that we maintained the quality that they had become used to being with us, the small class sizes, the professional approaches, the respect, the kindness. They needed to keep all of those pieces. And so we're very passionate about having them ready. They're out 3 and 4 days a week. They go work vocationally in the community. They go to the grocery store and shop, and then they come back and have cooking lessons, and they fill out timesheets, and we're getting them ready to, we're growing this program so that they will be ready to maybe volunteer somewhere, what's appropriate in the community, have a job, have a part-time job, be able to work some so that they've got value in their life, that they have a meaningful day. It's just very important to us that their life continues to be enriched and fulfilled through their lifespan. Through their lifespan, they deserve to be out being productive. And so we've been very fortunate with the Barancic Foundation has supported us, and the Patterson Foundation has been amazing through No Margin, No Mission. They have helped us create a business plan for this Hive program and done a tremendous amount for us to start our startup capital for this. And so that's been a long process, and we continue to be with them for years now, which we're very fortunate to have their expertise to guide us and continue guiding us. And so we do have those things on campus. We want to guide our young men and women into as much independence as possible. So it is an active program with academics like daily life skill academics, safety, self-care, work skills, interpersonal skills, and we're still working on that. At 22, 23, 24, we will keep working on it.
Absolutely.
Whatever the parents' goals are for their children, and we just really want to keep these guys and girls having meaning in their day. So we're excited to have that, and we do have an accredited high school on the campus as well, where they can graduate with an access diploma, and we are looking into being able to offer a regular diploma as well now. And so we've had some success stories with that. We had a young lady that went on to a costuming program. She was quite the fashionista, and she went on to study costuming for a local theater. And a couple of our guys have graduated. We had one that went to military school, one that's gone to a trade school, and we have a couple that are working full-time. They have jobs, they're driving, they have girlfriends. They come back to visit, and we're just so excited that they're back and they're just doing so well out in the world. And they come back and visit, which is a lot of fun for everybody.
And to be invited back, it just is a source of hope and inspiration for the students there, sharing the tremendous strides. And I love your foresight. I love that, what you said about helping individuals find value in life. And I think having value in life is what brings happiness and contentment.
Right.
And it just
Absolutely.
falls into place. We all need something. We all need a reason to wake up every morning and a
They
mission.
deserve that.
Absolutely. And they deserve to be safe and
Yes,
respected.
absolutely. They're our most, in so many ways, they're just our most vulnerable. And I watch them walk through the halls and I watch them come in and I'm like, just such this protective sense comes over me in terms of this little individual moving through the world who's maybe nonverbal at this time. And just, it just takes all of us to keep them safe and keep them feeling loved. And it's the best part of the day, for sure, to get to be with the students. But just protecting them is so important.
We all have a soul and we have feelings. And
Absolutely.
I'm in awe, really, at your kindness and
Yeah,
this mission.
it's-
Are there some colleges making accommodations
Yes.
for
Yes.
students? Are there any that you're familiar with here in Florida or nationally?
The Learning Academy at USF is a great immersive program. I believe is it 10 weeks long? It's a program where individuals with autism can go up and it's like a work study program where you can learn vocational skills, and it's structured like a typical school work day. And that's been a great program. We've had one of our Peabody High School graduates attend that program, USF Learning Academy.
CARD Services at USF does that, and CARD does a tremendous amount of outreach for autism services. And that academy was born out of CARD. And we are finding that our guys and girls we're finding smaller local colleges will make the accommodations. 2-year institutions, smaller online groups have made accommodations for the Access Diploma. So having much better luck with the smaller arenas. Universities, of course, which they're getting better as well. They're having to make accommodations for students. So we're finding that some of the smaller programs have been good to us in terms of being able to accept our kiddos with their Access Diploma.
It's a work in progress. And
It
I think
is.
many folks with autism are highly gifted in science and
Absolutely.
computers. And
Oh.
I remember watching a piece on 60 Minutes a couple of years back, Microsoft actually having a specific lunchroom for these employees where they had that sense of community and could feel comfortable.
wonderful.
Yes. So I think there are some other companies looking at this too and recognizing these talents and incorporating
Because they
programs.
are there. That ability to concentrate and focus on a preferred activity, if it's something that's preferred, it's profound what they can, and just the level. I mean, we've got kids that they're artistic, and even now I'm seeing visually with cameras what they can do visually with photography and art and music, some of them, but the science it's just, that's another thing that we like to take into account is what is the student's natural tendencies? What are they most naturally interested in? And we need to accommodate, we can find ways to teach them skills around those interests. When my son was little, he was hyper-focused on Africa. I mean, as a 2-year-old, 2.5, he knew every country in Africa, he knew every river in Africa, So we used that. We used the African map and Africa as a way to encourage his language and to work with him. It's finding their interest and building around it to help them be successful. So you don't know what it's going to be until you find it, and it's an interesting process. But once you do, I think you can just find a lot of success with meeting their needs and their interests.
It's like opening a dam once you find that special
It
interest.
is.
I have to ask, have you taken him to Africa yet? Like
No,
for safari?
not yet. He would love it.
Busch Gardens.
Yeah, he
close
did
enough.
love Busch Gardens as a child. He did. That's true.
Something to think about in the future.
It's true.
ATS field trip.
Yes, a field trip.
Loryn, can you tell our listeners a little bit more about your podcast, the Helping Families Go Beyond? What prompted you, what the needs were that you were seeing that prompted you to start that podcast, and what topics have you discussed and what's on the horizon?
Yeah, absolutely. So we all wanted to come up with a more accessible resource for families because we have historically tried to come up with in-person events for families where they could come in the mornings or after work. And it kind of became, we realized that wasn't quite maybe a possibility for some families if they're caring for their children. So we wanted to come up with a resource that could be easily accessible, something that they could just listen to at any time and save for reference instead of having to go back out after a long day of work and caretaking. And so we came up with the podcast, and I've been really lucky to talk with some amazing professionals. We spoke with the founder of Beyond the Spectrum, Catherine Peabody, and I got to talk to her about having her own son with autism, Kevin, and her driving force with her husband, Chris, building Beyond the Spectrum and making it what it is today. And then I got to sit down with my mom, too, and we had a really nice, transparent conversation about the parenthood side of autism and having a student on the spectrum. And I got to sit down with our school psychologist and our BCBA, and we've had great conversations about what families can do, what steps they can take in getting enrolled in different kinds of services and different resources that they can take a look at. And so the individuals that I've talked to, they've had so much expertise and guidance that they've shared. And I would really like to connect with more caregivers, more siblings, and just to give families a sense of acceptance and understanding. And I'd also like to talk to other local nonprofits that maybe have a similar mission that also provide meaningful services for the individuals on our campus. So I'd really be open to talking to anybody on the podcast that can provide some helpful insight for families in need of services and resources.
And in our fast-paced society, time is of the essence, and having that ability to tune in and choose a topic relevant to what's going on with your family or your child at that time, or something you may not be aware of, is a great resource. And I think for a lot of families as well, as they are navigating raising a child with autism or having a sibling, it can be a little bit isolating, overbearing. They feel misunderstood, that they're not welcome.
Absolutely.
And that can be pretty heavy and difficult to navigate. So having parents lean in on each other and form that sense of community, I would think, is super important.
Yeah. We have families. We have a lot of grandparents that are raising grandchildren because with special needs, for some reason, mom or dad have stepped out of the picture or not there. And so we have an entire population of grandparents raising these grandchildren. And, we hear those stories of not being welcome at family gatherings, not being allowed to go to church, those barriers that give them support, they're being kind of made to feel uncomfortable in that from your own family, your own set of friends. And so it is very isolating. And we've started a group, Caregiver Connect, where we try to get anyone who wants to come in once a month. And if they have time, we just have breakfast out and they can come and visit with each other and spend time together. And we've had some great friend networks that have developed. We see them hopping in each other's cars now out in the parking lot and taking off for the day together, and that's success. We love that they've made that connection. And so we've done that. And then we have a community insight series that our school psychologist and our BCBA have created for us. They're amazing. And once a month. And so it's strictly it's over Zoom to be convenient at lunchtime. And they sit and they'll discuss whatever topics parents have, caregivers, professionals, whatever question you need to ask them, they are there to answer it. So those have been really successful. I was a little surprised even by the number of people who have come in and participated and the directions that it will take, we just want to be supportive in a convenient way. Like Loryn said, it's got to be where it's convenient and easily accessible.
Have you utilized any therapy dogs or animals that visit the campus?
Yeah, it's actually, we have one of our old speech therapists has created her own nonprofit group called Dee Dee's Miracle Minis. And so what she's done is she's created a farm, and she has therapy horses, she has goats out there, and I think she's always wanting to add more to the farm. But so our Hive group has partnered with her, and what they'll do is they'll go out and they'll work with the animals, and also in like a therapeutic and a vocational sense. It's really like like two birds with one stone kind of thing, where they'll go out and they can work with the animals and get that therapeutic benefit. And then they're also working on vocational, like life skills, cleaning the stalls and feeding the animals and hanging supplies up and earning a token system to pay for a snack or a drink at the end of the workday while they're out there. And so that's been a great partnership working with those animals out there. It's been interesting, actually, because sometimes we'll bring our dogs to school. If we've got a little dog, we'll bring them in for the day. And it's so amazing to see how the students light up at that. I mean, it's like seeing a spark with some of the students. Just the connection they have with animals is really special.
It is special to witness. I love programs like Autism Dogs of America, where they specifically train dogs to be best friends and companions for children on the spectrum. And just that loyalty and that unconditional love and acceptance and respect, and
how it helps that child just kind of open up. The anxieties kind of melt and they become more of their true self because they've got this acceptance and this companion. And so it is. The animals are amazing for children for any of us, they're amazing, but it's wonderful to see how they do react.
Specifically so when you're trying to find your footing and you move differently in the world and think differently, and that's okay, because having that one.
Exactly. Having that buddy with you that supports you no matter what and accepts you.
Definitely.
Exactly.
Lora, one of the things I wanted to touch on that I found startling, really, to see it on paper and read it, was a recent Center for Disease Control article that kind of posted a timeline of the incidence of the diagnosis of autism. So just to give you and our listeners some information on that, in the year 2000, there was a reported 1 in 150 children diagnosed with autism. In 2010, that increased to 1 in 68 children. And most recently, in 2023, there's now a report stating that it's 1 in 36 children is currently diagnosed with autism. So an obvious, significant, and steady increase in prevalence. What do you think is contributing to this?
I hope that sometime within my lifespan, I hope that we find that answer. I do hope that we find the answer, just so that I know, so that I'll know what could be the contributing factors. And I do think, there are so many schools of thought as to why the numbers have grown so much. And I do think we are expanding the autism diagnosis in terms of, I do think that they are expanding that, the spectrum of autism, and it's being more highly recognized by doctors, pediatricians, developmental specialists, catching it much earlier and finding signs and, getting children started into therapy sooner. A lot of times we have parents that struggle with, they're not quite ready for the autism diagnosis. They're on the fence, and people are still kind of, well, maybe it's PDD and OS. Maybe it's a little touch of something else. But if you don't have that autism diagnosis, unfortunately, you don't get services. Services are not provided for you in a lot of ways until you do have a formal diagnosis.
Yes.
So I know a lot of parents do make that. They're like, okay, let's make that decision so that we can get all the services in place for my child. I've always wondered if there's a genetic predisposition, and then is there an environmental trigger that contributes to these individuals that, why did this one develop autism and this one not? And we're all kind of absorbing the same things in our world, but for some reason their bodies and brains and guts and do not absorb our metals the same way, or cannot rid their bodies of the things, and it builds up. So I think there's so, and I hesitate to even, because it is such a hot button for so many people
Sure.
to come up, I think we've got better diagnosis happening, but I think there's definitely got to be some kind of environmental factor that's contributing to, the diagnosis. Is it the plastics? Is it the food we eat? I hope we find that answer.
Right. I hope we continue to gain more knowledge and insight. And
yeah, because the original research that was done on autism was only being funded through Alzheimer's research. So Alzheimer's research was somehow attributing into the autism world because it's kind of the same areas of the brain. And so Alzheimer's research was very well funded before autism was prevalent. And so now autism has kind of come into it's much more widely recognized and researched and funded. But it's interesting that it kind of took the Alzheimer dollars to even have anything get started in terms of research for autism. So I hope with all of the brilliant minds that are out there researching it that we'll find, they're finding more and more information about it every day.
absolutely. And I think collectively, mental health, more and more, that gut brain connection and that
for sure.
inflammatory cascade
Yes.
seems to be a contributing factor and very often can help alleviate a lot of symptoms, I think.
Yes,
Just
very true. I agree. It's that gut-brain connection that I read about when my son was an infant. That was, the information was out there then, and now we're talking about it. And I'm like, yeah, this has been out there, this gut-brain connection, because we started to do a lot of interventions for him in that way to see what, was happening with him biologically. That was such a big thing for us. So, and it still is for families. They're still out there working that with their doctors and physicians and specialists.
Sure. I mean, and hopefully it will compound and continue to grow and be more and more accessible to everybody without feeling like it's an obstacle course.
Right. Because back when my son was little, we tried the gluten-free. We went gluten-free because that's an inflammatory thing. And so it was unheard of back then. And I would order bread from Alabama, and I'd order chocolate from Kentucky, and I would stand in the kitchen all day and try and make things from rice. And so I see all these aisles of gluten-free food now, and it's amazing that people do have these options because it was unheard of back when we were doing it. So I love to see that progress
and
for families.
The stigma around it,
Yes.
discipline your child or give them, that's just a myth, gluten-free and, the ignorance surrounding it.
Yes. Lessening ignorance would be wonderful, in terms of, I literally had a friend of mine when my son was, I think he was about 18 months old, and she said to my mother-in-law, "What's wrong with him? Is his brain broken?" And this is a grown woman with a child of her own. And she's like, "Is his brain just broken? What is it?" And so hopefully we've come a long way from that type of judgment. I think you'll find many more people that know people affected by autism and who have autism. And thank goodness that people are more aware.
Right.
And kind and accepting. So I think that's where I become very passionate about acceptance and awareness and inclusion.
It's hard to believe that there are people that can be calloused, but I think once they're given the information and the opportunity to learn, it shifts. It does shift.
Right. And I've always wanted to give everyone the opportunity to learn.
Yes.
I want to give everyone the opportunity to learn about it so that you can better understand and better appreciate and accept.
Yes.
Without judgment. If you've not brushed up against it, I understand. It's a different world for sure if you haven't.
Right. It's a different approach with how it's all about redirection and empowering students to really exhibit, good behaviors and safe behaviors.
Right.
And I think back to my nephew when he was younger, we were at a large family function at a restaurant and he pulled the fire alarm. We had to evacuate the entire restaurant. And there was a person there who, really scolded him in a sense that, yes, it wasn't the right thing to do. Rather than explain, you've kind of activated this fire truck to come and this and that's for an emergency. But she would have understood in a nice way. She was rather militant and why would you do something like this? Or are you not thinking? And I found it just a bit harsh. And she was not aware that he was autistic. So, I mean, to be fair, but still, I mean, there were clues that.
Yes, it's a child, and obviously, if there are clues, and we were playing mini golf as a family when Scotty was very young, and obviously things were different for him. I mean, you can look at him and see, oh, okay, we have something happening here, and my son somehow he got over and he picked up another man's ball off the course, and this guy lost his mind. That this child had picked up, and you can see that he's special. I mean, you could stop for a minute and take in this. It's mini golf,
right?
First of all, and this guy lost his mind, and so I apologized, tried to explain my son has autism. I'm very sorry, he was unaware, and so I finally just went over. He just was not. So I finally went over and picked up my ball, put it down where his was, and I said, "Enjoy the rest of your day." I was like, if this is what's going to help you, enjoy the rest of your day. Families become they shy away from taking their kids out after having a few of those experiences. And it's, you brush up against the unpleasantness and the people that are unaware. And, so those were just building blocks for me to realize you do have to keep going out there.
Absolutely.
You do.
Right. We all have to move forward in life and strive for being the best version of ourselves.
Exactly.
And life can be challenging under the best of circumstances, with or without autism.
Right.
And it's important that we all support one another however we can. And community-based programs and having soft places to fall, so to speak.
Right.
Loryn, what do you think working at Beyond the Spectrum? And I'm curious as to how plugged in you are to other geographical parts of the country or other places in Florida in regard to what their report cards are on providing education and helping individuals with autism and families. Like, how Beyond the Spectrum seems like really an outlier of what I've encountered in other spaces. And I am from the upstate New York region where I still practice and have a private practice. And while there's in-school services, there's often bumps in the road every other day, with outbursts and difficulty containing and helping students thrive. So I'm curious as to what your perspective is.
Yeah, so we get lots of phone calls every day from people that are moving to Florida from other parts of the country, and it will simply be because that the services there are lacking, or they have family close by that can be better support in Florida. But so we get calls from all around the country. I mean, we'll have people from Alabama, New York, New Jersey, and they're all in need of services. So I'm not too familiar with how the systems work in other states, but I try to stay informed through watching creators that have autism or families that kind of share their experience, maybe through TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. There's lots of families that you can follow that will share their experience. Lots of creators that are very open about the services that are in their areas. And so I try to stay informed with those and stay updated through them, because they'll be very honest about what their day-to-day looks like where they're at and what their processes are and how they get through their days. So that's mainly how I try to stay informed.
That's really good to know.
Yeah.
A lot of platforms out there. It's interesting. I read anything on social feeds that are from adult autistics who express what their day is like and the masking that they go through to be accepted, and how exhausting that is, or how to treat a coworker who may have, how employers should, help employees that may be on the spectrum. And I think you're right. There's a lot of interesting families and things that you can follow on social media that bring you right inside the family, and you just get to know them, and it's fascinating how they work. And I think a lot of times, I know at our school we are a different animal, like you said, in terms of we have very small class sizes. We have like one instructor to 4 students. And once we reach 5 students, we usually start adding an assistant in the classroom. So we have a lot of hands-on, 1-to-4 ratio. You don't have a lot of places to hide or a lot of downtime, those kinds of things. So at the same time, I think it's very important. We like to keep our students at about an 80% success rate. We want them to be successful and feeling good about their day and how they're progressing. And we don't want them to get to a point of being overwhelmed and shutting down and then having behaviors from not feeling successful or like they can do the work. And so we keep them at about an 80% success rate. And having a 4-to-1 ratio is really amazing in that the teacher can teach the same unit, the same curriculum of what they're doing, but at each student's individual level. Mm-hmm. One may be learning at 0.5, and their friend may be at 1.5, and their friend may be at 2, and she can provide all of the necessary material to keep them challenged in a proper way, but yet we're all talking about volcanoes or space or whatever the theme is that time. They're just seeing it on their individual level. So I think we're a little bit of a different animal in that we keep such small class sizes and we have so many therapies under our roof.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Then I've heard a lot about schools in New York, how they just are in the districted schools and it's really big classrooms and lots of varying exceptionalities brought in together.
Yes.
And I think it's hard for any professional to deal with 18-to-1, 25-to-2. Those are tough statistics to work with, successfully, I think.
Yes, so those are large classroom sizes.
Mm-hmm.
Even if there is an aid accompanying,
yeah.
Still it can be.
I hear
and the
turnover
student
is
doesn't
high.
always feel safe either.
Exactly. No.
You want students. Everybody should feel good about where they go every day.
That's one of my biggest indicators that I tell parents is, how do you feel when you come into our building? When you come into our school? How do you feel? How does your child feel? How are they acting? We've had some that started school with school trauma from being at other places and being placed in exclusion in a room with nothing and no one to go to. And they've been at home for 2 years because of trauma. And then we take them in and they may come to school for an hour a day to start with. And their mom may sit out in the big room where they can see them. And then we take mom piece away and we start to stay longer. And then eventually, so we had a young man that we did that with, terrified of school, terrified. And he ended up, I think within his first couple months, he wanted to come to before care. He wanted to be there for after care. Mm-hmm. He came in every day. He didn't want to leave. And so if you see crying because they have to come home, they've had a good day.
Yes.
They've had a good day. And I think parents need to see that as an indicator of how their child feels about their space.
Mm-hmm. What is the wait time right now, Loryn, for families reaching out to you? And have you thought about setting up other schools, like nationwide, ideally, but, in other places in Florida?
We would love to. We get calls every day from families wanting to enroll their student. And so the wait list is like a never-ending process for us. We're always reaching out to families that are on it, scheduling tours for them, taking in new families. And so there isn't exactly a clear time frame for it because we're always trying to utilize our wait list so that the open available classroom spots that we have are being filled with students that'll benefit the most from it.
Sure.
And so it's really fluctuating. And usually for us, it's near the end of our school year. So that's something we're really working on right now is contacting those families and contacting our own families to see if they'll be returning and how happy they've been with the school year. So lots of communication happening with that.
I like how it's like kind of a rolling process.
It is.
Taking a look at
right
what students will benefit the most.
Because it's not an automatic list. We place the classrooms like it's a dance that we continually do to keep the kids kind of in a great spot with each other. And so there may not be any spots in a class that would be perfect for this student, so they may have to wait a little longer, but this student may get right in because we have a seat available for his needs. And so it's difficult to explain how that process works, but we fill our seats making sure all the needs of all the students in that classroom are met.
Okay, that's helpful. Interestingly, there's a town in Ireland, and I cannot think of the name of it now, but it was voted the most autism-friendly town and community, where they have a lot of individuals that actually live there and work there. What would you, in an ideal world in the United States, what would this town look like to the both of you? That would be...
I know that we do have families who are planning ahead for their children, and they are purchasing homes in kind of a co-op kind of a way, and you can buy a bedroom and a bathroom for your child to age into because there is such a shortage of services and housing. So I do know that there are some great groups of special needs families who are kind of forming these groups where they're wanting to put together housing communities. And we have one of our parents at our school that's very involved. We have a few that are building homes and thinking about small communities where they could have professionals go in and support the individuals on a daily basis, and keep an eye and make sure everybody's safe. But they've kind of have their own days, and they're safe and they're independent, but yet oversight is coming in. And I do see a trend of families thinking for the future
forward, yes.
because they realize there's nothing out there.
Right.
So they're creating their own, which is usually how the best things come about.
Yes.
You see an issue and you're like, I'm going to solve that.
And no better person than a parent with that intimate vested interest.
Exactly. So I am seeing, where I think a community would be where they're safe and they're properly accommodated and protected, and there's an oversight there, and lots of opportunities though for social activities if they choose. I think opportunities for physical exercise too would be so important. Safe spaces outside, safe physical activities for them to engage in. I think it's so good for the mental health and the social aspect and your physical health to be out and encourage that kind of involvement, and because a lot of our kids live on that technology now, and I think anything we can do to broaden those horizons into other aspects of life beyond the technology is important. And we've had Sarasota County Sheriff's Office has reached out to us, as well as we've had hospitals reach out to us. Sarasota Memorial reached out to us, and they're in a stage where they're all struggling with how do we accommodate these individuals that we are coming across in our daily lives, calls for emergencies from the police department, or they come across a victim who has autism, or maybe even a perpetrator who has autism who didn't even realize they were a perpetrator. They didn't understand. And so it's a whole world. And Sarasota Memorial is reaching out saying, looking for bedside help and support, because a lot of our folks are going to be aging, and if they're nonverbal, how do they tell the nurse how they're feeling? And a lot of nurses are experiencing a lot of bedside trauma, both sides, nurses and patients. There's such a need for continuing life services for these men and women as they age. And, and I appreciate both Sarasota Memorial, Sarasota Sheriff's Department reaching out going, hey, we want to learn more. We want to do better. We want to learn. What can we do? How do we do better?
How do we approach these individuals, make them uncomfortable?
How can we be successful?
Yes.
And they're all looking to be successful and take better care of these individuals. And I think that's fantastic. Yeah. That's hopeful for the future, that people are wanting to reach out and do better and learn.
We are rising to the occasion.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the perfect way to put it.
Yeah, I think on a day-to-day basis, I see lots of local groups like, what is it, the Mode Aquarium? And there's a couple other groups. They'll do like a sensory-friendly hour. And so they'll take the first hour of the day and they'll dim the lights and they'll reduce the amount of people in the building. It's more of like a sensory-friendly option for families that have children with autism. There's lots of groups that we've seen that do like sensory breakout rooms, just overall making it more inclusive. Just lots of, I'm seeing that more often in our area. So seeing more of that would be amazing. Just thinking about the sensory approach for individuals and having those breakout rooms or having the lowered lights or the lowered music, just seeing that kind of flexibility for families.
Yeah, we have a gentleman who owns a private gym down the road from us, and it's absolute strength gym. Couldn't recommend it any higher. We went to him and said, would you allow our students to come down and work out in your gym? Would you guide them and help them, physical fitness, and it's an activity? And he was a little nervous. He hadn't had a lot of interaction with people on the spectrum. And so his name is Kyle, and Kyle dove right in, educated himself amazingly, took us all on, embraced us incredibly. Now he sees just about everybody. It was one class that we started with. Now I think he sees just about the whole school. And he has started his own special needs weight camps in the summer. And I've heard that if he feels the energy of the room is on a certain, he'll lower the lights. He'll lower the music. He just makes accommodations, just naturally throughout the workout session if he feels the energies are off. And so I think just people learning about the world and autism and their needs. And he has just jumped in with both feet and just been a tremendous supporter.
So much potential for so many business entities just to carve out that period, like the aquarium, to have that, sensory awareness for autistic individuals to enjoy the aquarium or a workout.
Right.
I also would like to see, even for extended family members like cousins and grandparents who may not understand the autism diagnosis and how to best thrive in relationship with a grandchild or a cousin or more extended families that aren't part of the day in and day out. I think that would be beneficial as well. Hint, hint, future podcast
Absolutely.
topic.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I agree, because we have some extremely supportive, jump in with both feet, want to be there through all of it, helping, and then you have the extended families who don't quite understand and don't quite get on board and become more of a source of judgment to the to the parents who are struggling already. And so not only are they not offering their support, but they are questioning, and why do you let him get away with that? I just don't understand. Why don't you just make him go to the table and make him eat that? That's what I would do. And it's, if you're not fighting the battle every day and you decide very quickly which battle to pick in a given day. And so I agree in terms of families need support and respite and understanding from grandparents and cousins and sisters and brothers, and sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not.
All around, and I love the co-op idea as well.
Yes,
and I know there are also some colonies I've heard of, like in upstate New York, that have little town centers. To your point,
be amazing.
Or families that have opened businesses for their adult children to work in. And as this population is aging and prevalence has increased, and there's lots of opportunity for growth, and I think it's an exciting time to celebrate unique differences and make the world more and more interesting. I cannot thank you both enough for joining us on the podcast today. Your insight and knowledge have been so helpful, and you really are doing God's work with your mission and your dedication and love for this community. So thank you so much for coming. I hope you'll come back so we can expand on the conversation as the opportunity arises. And thank you for tuning in today, listeners. And until next time, remember to live on the brighter side of life, like the sunflower who chooses to face the sun.